The marketplace on Station Meridian was unlike anything Katie Walsh had ever seen back on Earth. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy moved through the massive space, haggling over goods she couldn't even name. Strange fruits glowed in bins. Merchants with too many eyes called out prices in languages that made her translator buzz frantically in her ear. The air smelled like a mix of spices, ozone, and something sweet she couldn't quite place. Katie wiped sweat from her forehead, her cargo hauler uniform still covered in grease stains from this morning's repair job. 2 months. She'd been working the deep space shipping routes for only 2 months, and every single day still felt like her first day. Everything was new. Everything was strange. And honestly, everything was amazing. She'd saved up for 3 years to buy her ticket off Earth, working double shifts at the factory just to afford the transport fees. Now here she was, walking through an alien marketplace on a space station halfway across the sector, trying to find decent food that wouldn't upset her human stomach. A vendor with purple tentacles waved something that might have been bread at her. Katie smiled politely and kept walking. She'd learned quickly that saying no to the wrong merchant could mean a 20-minute sales pitch you couldn't escape. That's when she heard it. A scream cut through the noise of the marketplace like a knife. Not an adult scream. A child scream. High-pitched, terrified, desperate. Katie froze. Her head whipped toward the sound. Her heart was already racing before her brain caught up to what she was hearing. There, in the middle of the wide corridor between vendor stalls, stood a small alien child. The little one couldn't have been more than 3 feet tall. Its skin was covered in delicate scales that shimmered violet and blue under the bright station lights, shifting colors like oil on water. It had 4 arms, each one waving frantically in the air as it cried. Tears streamed down its small face. Its mouth was open wide, showing tiny pointed teeth as it wailed. The child looked absolutely terrified. Katie started moving toward it without thinking. But something made her pause. She noticed the crowd around the child was doing something weird. Every single alien nearby was backing away. Not just stepping back a little. Actually backing away, creating this growing circle of empty space around the crying child. Some of them looked afraid. Others looked almost disgusted. A few were pulling their own children closer to them, hurrying away faster. Nobody was helping. Nobody was even getting close. What the hell? Katie looked around, trying to see if maybe the child's parents were nearby. Maybe they were coming. Maybe there was a reason everyone was keeping their distance. But the circle kept growing wider. The child kept crying harder. And nobody, not a single person, was doing anything. The little one was alone. Completely alone in a crowd of thousands. Something in Katie's chest twisted painfully. She'd heard that sound before. That particular kind of crying. It wasn't angry crying or hurt crying. It was scared crying. Lost crying. The kind of crying that came from pure fear and confusion. She'd made that sound herself once, when she was 6 years old and got separated from her mom at the state fair. She'd stood in the middle of a crowd of strangers, completely lost, crying so hard she thought her chest would explode. She remembered how big everyone looked. How loud everything was. How alone she felt. This kid felt alone right now. She could see it in every movement, hear it in every scream. Screw it. Katie pushed through the crowd. Aliens moved out of her way quickly, some making sounds of surprise. She ignored them all. She ignored the weird looks. She ignored the way some of them seemed to be trying to warn her about something. Her brain had switched into a different mode. Not thinking mode. Just doing mode. She reached the child and dropped to her knees on the cold metal floor. The child looked at her with wide eyes. Its pupils were huge and dark, tears still flowing. Up close, Katie could see it was trembling. Actually shaking. The poor thing was having a complete meltdown. "Hey, sweetheart," Katie said softly, keeping her voice gentle. "Hey, it's okay." She opened her arms slowly. Not grabbing. Not forcing. Just offering. The child stared at her for maybe 2 seconds. Then it rushed forward into her arms so fast it nearly knocked her backward. Small arms wrapped around her neck and waist. The little body pressed against her chest, shaking like a leaf. The child buried its face against her shoulder and kept crying, but the screaming had stopped. Katie wrapped her arms around the small alien, holding it close like she'd held her little cousin 100 times back home. She started rocking slowly, side to side, the way her grandmother used to do when Katie had nightmares. "Essie, you're okay," she whispered. "You're safe. I've got you. You're okay." She started humming. An old lullaby her mom used to sing. She didn't even think about it. Her body just remembered what to do. The child's crying got quieter. The trembling slowed. Its breathing started to even out. Small chirping sounds replaced the wails, like a bird settling down after being startled. Katie kept rocking. Kept humming. Kept holding this scared little kid who needed someone, anyone, to just be there. She brushed her hand gently over the child's head. The scales felt smooth and warm, like sun-heated glass. "That's it," she murmured. "You're doing great. Everything's okay now." The child made a soft cooing sound and snuggled closer. Katie smiled. Kids were kids, apparently. Didn't matter if they had 2 arms or 4. Didn't matter if they had skin or scales. When they were scared, they just needed to know someone cared. She finally looked up, expecting to see relieved faces. Maybe the child's parents rushing over. Instead, she saw something that made her blood run cold. The entire marketplace had gone completely silent. Every single being was staring at her. Hundreds of aliens. Different species, different sizes, different everything. All of them frozen. All of them staring. Some looked shocked. Some looked afraid. And a few looked at her like she'd just done something impossible. Katie's smile faded. "What?" she said quietly. Nobody answered. Then she heard the heavy sound of boots hitting metal. Marching. Fast. Getting closer. That's when Katie realized she'd made a terrible mistake. She just didn't know what it was yet. "Do not move, human." Katie's head snapped up. Her heart jumped straight into her throat. 12 soldiers surrounded her. They'd appeared out of nowhere, forming a tight circle around her and the child. Each one stood at least 7 feet tall, covered head to toe in armor that looked like it cost more than her entire ship. The armor was deep black with gold trim, covered in symbols she'd never seen before. Symbols that probably meant something important. Something official. But it was the weapons that made her blood turn to ice. Every single soldier had their gun pointed directly at her head. Not near her. Not in her general direction. At her head. Specifically. Katie's mouth went dry. She couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Her arms were still wrapped around the child, but now she was frozen in pure fear. "Let go of the child. Now." The lead soldier's voice came through a translator, harsh and crackling. The mechanical tone somehow made it sound even more threatening. Katie's brain finally kicked back into gear. Okay, I'm letting go." Her voice came out shaky. Her hands trembled as she carefully unwrapped her arms from around the child. She raised both hands slowly, palms out, trying to show she wasn't a threat. "I was just trying to help." The kid was crying and nobody else was. She tried to gently move back from the child, but the little one had other ideas. The child's 4 small arms clamped onto her leg like a vice. Tiny hands gripped her pants so tightly she could feel little claws digging through the fabric. The child pressed its face against her knee and made soft cooing sounds, almost like a dove. "No, sweetie, you have to let go now," Katie said quietly, trying to keep her voice calm even though her heart was hammering. She could see the soldiers tense up, their weapons tracking her every tiny movement. "These people need you to let go." The child just held on tighter. It made a small chirping sound that somehow sounded like no. The soldiers started talking rapidly to each other in their own language. Katie's translator tried to keep up, catching random words. Contact. Contamination. Protocol breach. Impossible. None of it made any sense. Why would hugging a kid be contamination? The lead soldier took a step closer. Katie instinctively tried to step back, but the child on her leg made that impossible. She nearly tripped. "The offspring has attached to you," the soldier said, and Katie couldn't tell if that was anger or confusion in his mechanical voice. "Maybe both. How are you still standing?" "What? I don't understand." "I'm standing because..." "I'm standing? I don't..." Silence. The soldier made a sharp gesture. 2 others moved forward, but they approached slowly. Carefully. Like Katie was a bomb that might explode. One of them had some kind of scanner. A blue light washed over her and the child. The device made sounds Katie had never heard before. Worried sounds, if devices could sound worried. The soldier looked at the scanner, then at his companion. They exchanged what had to be the alien equivalent of "what the hell" looks. A third soldier, smaller than the others, approached wearing different armor. Medical armor, Katie realized. White instead of black. This one carried what looked like a containment field generator. "I'm going to remove the offspring," the medical soldier said to Katie. Its voice was slightly less threatening. "Slightly. Do not resist." "I'm not resisting anything," Katie said, hands still up. "I don't even know what's happening." The medical soldier activated the containment field. A soft blue glow surrounded the child. Very gently, like handling something incredibly precious and incredibly dangerous at the same time, the soldier began to pry the child's arms off Katie's leg. The child started crying again. Not the terrified screaming from before, but sad crying. Heartbroken crying. It reached for Katie as it was lifted away. Its little chirps sounded like, "No, no, no," even though Katie knew that probably wasn't what it was actually saying. "I'm sorry, baby," Katie whispered. She felt tears stinging her own eyes. This felt wrong. Everything about this felt wrong. The medical soldier placed the child in what looked like a floating bubble. The containment field glowed brighter, sealing the child inside. The little one pressed its hands against the inside of the bubble, still reaching for Katie, tears streaming down its face again. Katie's chest hurt. She wanted to go to the kid. Wanted to tell them it would be okay. But she had 12 guns pointed at her head, so she stayed very, very still. "Katie Walsh," the lead soldier said, reading from some kind of display on his arm. "Human. Cargo transport worker. Civilian class. You are under arrest for unauthorized physical contact with Imperial property." Imperial what? Katie's fear was starting to mix with anger. "That's not property. That's a child. You will remain silent." "I will not remain silent. What's wrong with you people?" That kid was terrified and alone, and I. Energy cuffs materialized around her wrists. Katie gasped as they locked into place, humming with power. They felt warm against her skin, almost alive. "You are charged with contamination of a royal person, breach of imperial security, and reckless endangerment." The soldier grabbed her arm, not roughly but firmly. "You will come with us. Now." "This is insane," Katie said, but she didn't fight. "You didn't fight people with that many guns." "I helped a kid." "Since when is that illegal?" Nobody answered her. They marched her through the marketplace. The crowd parted like she had some kind of disease. Katie kept her head up, trying not to look as terrified as she felt. Her mind was racing. Imperial property? Royal person? What the hell had she just touched? As they walked, she noticed something strange. Every alien they passed stopped what they were doing to stare. Some whispered to each other. Some made gestures she didn't understand. But the weirdest part was their expressions. They weren't looking at her with anger. They weren't looking at her like a criminal. They were looking at her with awe. With fear. Like she'd done something impossible. An old alien with 6 arms and kind eyes made a gesture as they passed. It pressed all 6 hands to its chest and bowed its head. The gesture felt important. Respectful. What the hell was going on? The soldiers led her to a docking bay where a ship waited. Not just any ship. A massive military vessel, sleek and intimidating, with those same gold symbols painted on its hull. As they forced her up the ramp, Katie looked back one last time. Through the crowd, she could see the child in its containment bubble, being carried away by medical personnel in hazmat suits. Hazmat suits. For a kid. The child was still looking at her. Still reaching. Katie's last thought before they sealed her in the ship was simple and terrifying. What have I done? The cell aboard the Imperial ship was pristine white. Everything was white. The walls, the floor, the ceiling, even the bench she sat on. It all glowed with this soft light that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at the same time. The whole room hummed. A low vibration that Katie could feel in her bones. Technology she couldn't even begin to understand surrounded her, probably monitoring her every breath. She'd been sitting on that bench for 3 hours. 3 hours of nothing. No explanations. No charges read to her. No lawyer, not that she'd know how to get an alien lawyer anyway. Just her, alone, in this white room that felt more like a hospital than a prison. Her mind wouldn't stop racing. She kept seeing the child's face. Those wide, terrified eyes. The way it had clung to her. The way it had cried when they took it away. What had she done wrong? The question spun through her head over and over. She'd helped a scared kid. That was it. That was all she'd done. How could that possibly be a crime? Katie stood up and paced for the 100th time. 5 steps to the wall. Turn. 5 steps back. Turn. Repeat. She'd counted. The cell was exactly 5 of her steps wide. She was going crazy in here. Just when she thought she might actually start screaming, the door finally opened. Katie spun around. Her heart jumped. A tall alien stepped through. Way taller than her, maybe 6.5 feet. Its body was covered in scales like the child's, but these were deeper purple, almost plum-colored. Elegant robes flowed around its body, made from fabric that shimmered when it moved. The robes were clearly expensive. Clearly important. This wasn't a soldier or a guard. This was someone who made decisions. The alien moved with careful dignity, each step deliberate. It carried itself like every diplomat or politician Katie had ever seen on the news back home. That particular way of walking that said, "I'm important and I know it." The door sealed shut behind it with a soft hiss. "I am Ambassador Ralsen," the alien said. Its translator was perfect. Not like the crackling, mechanical voices of the soldiers. This one sounded smooth, almost natural. Male-sounding, though Katie had no idea if this species even had gender the way humans did. "You have created quite a situation, Miss Walsh." Katie crossed her arms. Fear was being rapidly replaced by anger. She'd been trapped in this white box for 3 hours, and this was what she got? "I helped a scared kid." Since when is that a crime? That depends greatly on the child in question. Ambassador Ralsen moved to the center of the room but didn't sit. Just stood there, studying her with large amber eyes. "Tell me, Miss Walsh, what do you know about Thauric's culture?" "Nothing. I know nothing. I've been working cargo routes for 2 months. I barely know which species is which." "I see." The ambassador's scales rippled, a movement Katie was starting to recognize as thoughtful. "The child you encountered in the marketplace was Crown Prince Kivran. First heir to the Thauric's empire. The only offspring of Emperor Calvex. One of the most protected beings in this entire sector." Katie's stomach dropped. "Oh. Oh no. Oh yes. I didn't know. I swear to God, I didn't know." Katie's voice came out higher than normal. There was no crown, no guards, nothing. He was just alone and crying and nobody was helping him. "The prince was experiencing what we call the resonance madness," Ambassador Ralsen continued, his tone clinical now. "Educational. It is a neurological condition that affects approximately 30% of young Thauric's nobility. When our children become overwhelmed by sensory input or emotional distress, their biology enters a defensive state." "What kind of defensive state?" "Their bodies generate bioelectric pulses." The ambassador walked closer, his eyes never leaving her face. "Powerful ones. These pulses cause extreme pain to anyone who touches them. Nerve damage. Seizures. In severe cases, death." Katie felt the blood drain from her face. "What?" "We have lost 3 trained handlers in the past year alone. All of them attempting to calm the prince during episodes. All of them experienced neural trauma despite wearing protective equipment." He paused. "You wore no protection. You had no training. You simply walked up and embraced him." But he didn't hurt me." Katie looked down at her hands. They were fine. Normal. No burns, no damage. I didn't feel anything except him shaking." "Precisely." The ambassador's scales shifted color slightly, darkening. "That is why you should be dead, Miss Walsh. That is why every being in that marketplace fled from the prince. That is why the soldiers aimed their weapons at you. They expected you to collapse at any moment, possibly taking the prince with you in your death throes." Katie's legs suddenly felt weak. She sat down hard on the bench. "I could have died. You should have died. Yet you did not." The ambassador tilted his head, studying her like she was a particularly interesting specimen. "Your human biology appears to be immune to the resonance frequency. Or at least highly resistant. We do not know why. This has never been documented before." "Lucky me," Katie whispered. "Indeed. But that is not the most remarkable aspect of this situation." The ambassador sat down now, across from her, his robes pooling around him. "Our best medical technology requires 3 minutes to sedate a child experiencing resonance madness. It takes a full team of specialists. Specialized equipment. Carefully calibrated frequency dampeners. Okay? You calmed Prince Kivran in under 30 seconds. With nothing but physical contact in your voice." The ambassador leaned forward. "How did you do it?" Katie blinked at him. I hugged him." "You hugged him?" "Yeah. I held him close, I rocked him a little, I hummed a song. That's what you do when kids are scared. You comfort them." "Comfort?" The ambassador repeated the word slowly, like he was tasting it. "Define this concept." It's just being there for someone. Physical touch. Emotional support. Letting them know they're safe and not alone." Katie frowned. "How do you not know what comfort is?" We do not touch our young during distress episodes, Miss Walsh. It triggers their defensive responses. Causes them to panic further. Our children must learn emotional control in isolation. This has been our way for thousands of years. Katie stared at him. You leave them alone? When they are scared? We have no choice. Physical contact is dangerous. But Katie stopped herself. Took a breath. Tried to think clearly. Don't you see? That's probably why he was so terrified. He's alone every single time this happens. He thinks nobody can help him. Nobody will help him. Of course he panics harder. The ambassador was quiet for a long moment. His scales rippled again, that thoughtful movement. You claim to understand Thalric psychology better than our physicians. No. But I understand fear. Fear is universal. Every kid, human or alien, needs to know someone cares when they are scared. Ambassador Ralsen stood abruptly. He paced to the wall, his back to her. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter. The prince's condition is worsening. Episodes are becoming more frequent. More severe. If we cannot find a solution soon, he will never be able to take the throne. Our empire will face a succession crisis. He turned back to face her. And then you appear. A random human cargo hauler. You do the impossible with seemingly no effort at all. Katie swallowed hard. What happens to me now? That, the ambassador said, is what the emperor will decide. He wishes to meet you. The emperor. The actual emperor wants to meet me. Yes. The emperor whose kid I grabbed without permission. That would be the one. Katie put her head in her hands. I'm so dead. The throne room was massive. Katie had thought the marketplace was big, but this place made that look like a closet. The ceilings soared up so high she couldn't see where they ended. Everything was made of crystal and dark stone that caught the light and threw it around in rainbow patterns. Columns wider than her apartment back home stretched toward the ceiling. The floor was so polished she could see her reflection in it. And at the end of this enormous room, sitting on a throne that looked carved from a single piece of black stone, sat Emperor Calvex. Katie's knees went weak. The emperor was huge. Easily 9 feet tall, maybe more. His scales were deep purple, almost black, and they seemed to absorb light instead of reflecting it. He wore armor that looked both ancient and impossibly advanced at the same time. A crown of twisted metal sat on his head, embedded with stones that pulsed with their own light. But it was his presence that really hit her. Authority radiated off him like heat from a fire. This was someone who ruled planets. Someone who commanded fleets. Someone who could order her execution with a word. Katie suddenly understood why people used to wet themselves in front of kings. Guards flanked her on both sides. The entire court filled the throne room. Hundreds of Thalric's nobles in fancy robes, all watching her. All silent. The weight of their stares pressed down on her shoulders. Ambassador Ralsen had prepped her on the walkover. But when you enter, don't speak unless spoken to. Address him as Your Majesty or Sire. Don't make direct eye contact for too long. Don't move suddenly. Katie had nodded through all of it, but her brain had been screaming the whole time. Now, standing in front of the actual emperor, she tried to remember how to breathe. This human touched my son. The emperor's voice boomed through the chamber like thunder. Deep. Powerful. The kind of voice that made your bones vibrate. Explain yourself. Katie's mouth was dry. Her heart hammered so hard she thought everyone could probably hear it. But she forced herself to stand up straight. Forced herself to look at him, even though every instinct screamed at her to look at the floor. Your Majesty, her voice came out smaller than she wanted. She cleared her throat and tried again. Your Majesty, I saw a child in distress. I offered comfort. That's what humans do. Comfort. The Emperor said the word like it tasted strange. This word keeps appearing in the reports. What is this comfort? It's emotional support, sire. Physical reassurance. Letting someone know they're not alone when they're scared or hurt. The court erupted in chittering conversation. Katie caught fragments through her translator. Touching offspring. Primitive response. Emotional contamination. None of it sounded good. The Emperor raised one massive hand. Silence fell instantly. We do not touch our young during distress episodes, he said, his amber eyes boring into her. Such contact triggers their defensive biology. It is dangerous. Fatal. This has been established fact for millennia. With respect, Your Majesty, maybe that's the problem. The guards tensed. Several nobles gasped. Ambassador Ralsen, standing to the side, looked like he wanted to sink through the floor. But Katie was already committed. Might as well finish the thought that was going to get her killed. He's alone every time it happens, she continued, her voice stronger now. He's scared and overwhelmed, and everyone runs away from him. He associates that feeling with abandonment. With being dangerous. With nobody being able to help. Of course he panics harder. You claim to understand Thauric's biology better than our physicians. The Emperor's voice dropped dangerously low. No, Your Majesty. But I understand fear. And fear is universal. Every species, every child, needs to know someone will be there when they are terrified. That's not biology. That's just being alive. The Emperor stared at her for a long moment. Katie couldn't read his expression. Was he angry? Thinking? About to have her vaporized? Then a door opened at the side of the throne room. Prince Kivran entered, flanked by medical personnel in white. The little prince looked exhausted. His scales had faded to a pale lavender, almost gray. Dark circles showed under his eyes. He walked slowly, like every step took effort. The court fell silent. Every eye turned to the prince. Then Kivran saw Katie. His eyes went wide. He made a small chirping sound and started toward her before his handlers grabbed him. No, Your Highness, you must not. The prince pulled against them. His breathing quickened. His scales started to flicker with that bioelectric charge Katie had heard about but never seen. Little sparks of blue light danced across his skin. The handlers jumped back, releasing him immediately. Oh no. Katie recognized what she was seeing. He was having another episode. Right here. Right now. Clear the room. One of the medical staff shouted. Everyone back. The prince is entering a resonant state. The nobles scrambled away. The guards raised some kind of shields. The medical team activated equipment, trying to position dampening fields around the prince. But Kivran wasn't looking at any of them. He was looking at Katie. His small body was shaking. The flickering was getting worse. His breathing came in short gasps. He was terrified. Nobody touch him. The head physician ordered. We need to establish the containment field first. Stop. Katie stepped forward. Miss Walsh, do not. Ambassador Ralsen reached for her. He's not having a medical episode. Katie's voice cut through the panic. He's having a panic attack. You do not understand the danger. I understand he's scared. Katie looked at the Emperor. Your Majesty, please. Let me help him. The Emperor's expression was unreadable. The whole court held its breath. The prince's flickering was getting worse. In another minute, they'd sedate him. Restrain him. Leave him alone with his terror again. Do it, the Emperor said quietly. The medical team looked shocked. Your Majesty, the risk. I said do it. Katie didn't wait. She dropped to her knees right there on the polished floor. Put herself at eye level with the prince. She didn't reach for him. Didn't grab. Just made herself present. Kivran, she said softly. Hey, buddy. Remember me? The prince looked at her. The flickering slowed just slightly. A small chirp escaped him. I know you're scared. I can see it. But you're not alone. I'm right here. You're safe. Katie placed her hand on her own chest. Can you do what I do? Just try. Watch me. She took a slow, deep breath. Made it obvious. Made it big. In, 2, 3, 4. She breathed in slowly, keeping her eyes on his. Hold, 2, 3, 4. She held the breath. Out, 2, 3, 4. She released it slowly. The prince watched her. The flickering was still there but weaker. His small chest was still heaving. Try with me, Katie said gently. Just once. In, 2, 3, 4. The prince tried. His breath stuttered, but he tried. That's it. Good job. Hold, 2, 3, 4. His small hand moved to his own chest, copying her. Out, 2, 3, 4. They breathed together. Once. Twice. 3 times. The flickering stopped. The charge in the air faded. The prince's breathing evened out. The throne room was dead silent. Katie looked up to see the Emperor standing. He'd risen from his throne, staring at his son with an expression of absolute shock. His mouth was slightly open. His eyes wide. The prince chirped softly, still matching Katie's breathing. What? The Emperor's voice cracked. He cleared his throat and tried again. What did you do? I taught him he has control, Katie said quietly. That he's safe. That someone is here with him. The Emperor descended the steps from his throne. Slowly. Each step deliberate. He crossed the throne room until he stood right next to them. For a long moment, he just stared at his son. At this child who was breathing calmly. Who wasn't sedated or restrained or isolated. Then Emperor Calvex did something Katie suspected he'd never done before. He knelt down. 3 months later, Katie stood in the Imperial Gardens under twin suns, watching something she'd been told was impossible. Prince Kivran was playing. Actually playing. Running through the gardens with 3 other young Thaurix children, weaving between crystalline trees that chimed softly in the breeze. Their scales flashed different colors as they chased each other, laughing in high-pitched chirps and trills that echoed across the garden. Laughing. Children with resonance madness weren't supposed to be able to laugh. They were supposed to be isolated, sedated, carefully managed. Playing with other children should have triggered episodes immediately. But there they were. 4 kids playing tag like it was the most normal thing in the world. Katie smiled, warmth spreading through her chest. 3 months ago, she'd been a cargo hauler who barely knew how to work her own ship's navigation system. Now she was standing in the private Imperial Gardens wearing robes that probably cost more than everything she'd ever owned, watching the future emperor of a major galactic power play like a regular kid. Life was weird sometimes. Miss Walsh. Katie turned to see Emperor Calvex approaching. He moved more casually now than he had in the throne room. Still carried himself with authority, still radiated power, but there was something different. Something softer around the edges. His scales were decorated with silver markings she'd learned were a mark of deep respect. They'd been painted on during a ceremony last month, recognizing her as an honored friend of the Empire. Katie still wasn't entirely sure what that meant, but it apparently came with really nice living quarters. Your Majesty, Katie said, giving a small bow. She'd gotten better at the formal stuff, though it still felt weird. The physicians gave me their weekly report this morning, the Emperor said, stopping beside her to watch the children play. My son has not had a severe episode in 6 weeks. 6 weeks, Miss Walsh. He's doing amazing, Katie said, watching as Kivran shrieked with joy and tackled one of the other children. They tumbled together in the soft grass, both laughing. He's learned to recognize his triggers. He knows when he's getting overwhelmed. And most importantly, he knows he can ask for help when he needs it. Before you came, he would have 3 or 4 severe episodes per week. The Emperor's voice was quiet. Almost reverent. We thought it would only worsen with age. That we would eventually have no choice but to keep him permanently sedated or confined. Katie's chest tightened. The idea of that bright, sweet kid locked away forever made her feel sick. I'm glad I was in that marketplace. As am I. The Emperor paused. Though I admit, 3 months ago, I considered having you executed. Katie laughed. She probably shouldn't laugh at that, but she couldn't help it. Yeah, I picked up on that. The dozen guns pointed at my head were kind of a hint. You touched the Crown Prince. You could have killed him. By our laws, by everything we understood, you should have killed him. The Emperor's scales rippled thoughtfully. Instead, you showed us we understood nothing at all. Down in the garden, Kivran noticed his father watching. He chirped excitedly and ran over, the other children following. The prince's scales were bright and healthy, shifting between violet and blue in the sunlight. He looked like a completely different child from the terrified, exhausted little one Katie had first met. Katie, watch this. The prince's translator made his voice sound enthusiastic and young. I can do the breathing exercise by myself now. Oh yeah? Show me, buddy. Kivran stood up straight, very serious, and placed one small hand on his chest. He closed his eyes and breathed in slowly, held it, then released. Perfect form. When he opened his eyes, he was beaming with pride. That was perfect. Katie knelt down and held up her hand. Kivran high-fived it, a gesture she taught him that had apparently become popular with the other royal children. I'm so proud of you. Father, did you see? Did you see me do it? Emperor Calvex knelt down beside Katie. It still surprised her every time, seeing this massive, powerful ruler getting down on his son's level. 3 months ago, he'd probably never done that in his life. I saw, my son. You did excellently. Kivran chirped happily and hugged his father. Just walked right up and hugged him. The Emperor's arms came up carefully, still a bit uncertain, but he hugged his son back. His eyes closed for just a moment. Katie had to look away. The emotion on his face was too private, too raw. "Your Majesty," one of the other children spoke up, braver now than noble children had apparently ever been before. "Can we show Katie the new fountain?" "Go ahead," the Emperor said. "But stay within the garden boundaries." The children ran off, Kivran included, their laughter echoing back. The Emperor stood slowly. Katie stood with him. For a moment, they just watched the children play. "You have changed more than just my son," the Emperor said finally. "Your methods are spreading across the Empire. Other families with children who suffer from resonance madness are seeing similar results. The Medical Academy has revised centuries of treatment protocols. Yesterday, I received a report from the outer colonies. They are establishing parent-child bonding programs. The concept did not even exist in our language until you arrived." "That's incredible," Katie said softly. "It is revolutionary." He turned to look at her. "You came here as a prisoner. You could have demanded anything as payment for what you have done. Wealth, status, power. Yet you have asked for nothing." Katie shrugged. "I just wanted to help Kiv. That was always the whole point. This is what continues to baffle my advisors. They do not understand motivation without gain. Then maybe they need to learn that too." Katie smiled. "Not everything needs to be a transaction, Your Majesty. Sometimes you help people just because they need help." Ambassador Ralston approached, carrying a data pad. "Your Majesty, Miss Walsh, forgive the interruption. Katie, you have 112 new requests for consultation. 5 universities have renewed their research partnership offers. And the Medical Academy still wishes for you to lead their new emotional support training program." Katie's head spun. It had been like this for weeks. "I'm still just a cargo hauler. I don't have degrees in psychology or medicine." "No," the Emperor said. "You have something far more valuable. You have compassion. You have the ability to see someone suffering and refuse to look away. In a galaxy of 1,000 species, with technology that can reshape planets, it took a simple human who saw a child in pain and decided to help." Katie looked back at the children. At Kivran, who was demonstrating breathing exercises to one of the other kids now, teaching what he'd learned. At children who were learning they could be touched without fear. Who were learning they could ask for comfort. 3 months ago, she'd been drifting through space, hauling cargo, wondering if she'd made a mistake leaving Earth. Now she was watching a cultural revolution happen one hug at a time. "I'll stay," Katie said. "As long as I'm needed. As long as I can help." The Emperor placed one large hand over his heart. A gesture his son had taught him. A gesture that was spreading through the Empire, a symbol of care and connection. "You will always be needed, Katie Walsh. Of this, I am certain."